My grandfather used to tell me he walked to school in 3 feet of snow. Uphill. Both ways. Every single time, no matter how many times I heard it, I'd say the same thing. Grandpa, that's not possible. And every single time, he'd just smile like he knew something I didn't. He's been gone 6 years now, and it wasn't until last winter, standing in my own driveway shoveling snow at 7 a.m., cursing under my breath, that I finally understood what he was really trying to tell me. Somebody once left a comment on one of these old family story threads that made me laugh out loud. It said, "My grandpa didn't just walk to school in the snow." According to him, he basically summited Everest with a lunch pail and a math book. Everybody in the replies was losing it. But underneath the joke, there was something true. Something almost sacred. And that's what we're digging into today. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. The joke is funny. But the real story, the one buried underneath 80 years of exaggeration, is actually more incredible than Everest. Let's go back. The phrase, "uphill both ways in the snow," has been a punchline for generations. Comedians used it in the 60s. Sitcom dads used it in the 80s. Your own father probably used it on you right before making you finish your vegetables. It's one of the oldest jokes in American family life, right up there with "back in my day, a candy bar cost a nickel." But jokes don't survive for 70 years by accident. They survive because there's a kernel of something real buried inside them. And the real story of how kids got to school in the 1950s is one that most of us never actually heard. We just heard the punchline. So let's hear the truth instead. In 1953, if you lived in a small town in Ohio or Nebraska or upstate New York, chances are your school day didn't start when the bell rang. It started an hour earlier, in the dark, in the cold, walking down a dirt road that hadn't been plowed since the storm hit 2 days before. Rural school buses existed, but they weren't the heated, cushioned, GPS-tracked vehicles kids ride today. They were drafty. The engines struggled in the cold. Drivers wrapped chains around the tires by hand before sunrise, kneeling in the snow with numb fingers, because there was no other way to get traction on those roads. Some routes took over an hour, one way, on roads that were more mud than gravel come spring. And for the kids who didn't have a bus route at all, they walked. Real distances, not exaggerated ones. A mile, sometimes 2. In shoes that were often a hand-me-down from an older sibling, with wool socks doubled up because that's all there was. There were no snow days, not the way we know them now. Unless the storm was truly dangerous, school was open. And you were expected to be there. Teachers lit the coal stove in a one-room schoolhouse before the students even arrived. Because if they didn't, the ink would freeze in the wells. But here's what gets lost in all of this. It wasn't just hardship. It was also freedom. Kids walked those roads together, in packs, kicking stones and telling stories, completely unsupervised, for the better part of an hour, twice a day. They knew every dog on every farm along the way. They had inside jokes that lasted entire school years. There was a kind of independence in that walk that most kids today will never experience. Not because we don't love them enough, but because the world simply doesn't let them roam anymore. That's the part of the story cereal companies and sitcoms and internet jokes never quite captured. It wasn't Everest. But it wasn't easy either. And somewhere between the exaggeration and the dismissal, we lost the real texture of what that childhood actually felt like. Now, let's have some fun with this. Because the Everest joke deserves its moment. Picture it. A 7-year-old in 1954. Wool coat 2 sizes too big. Lunch pail in one hand. Arithmetic book clutched to his chest, like it's the only rope keeping him tethered to the mountain. The wind is howling. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. And in his memory, 40 years later, that dog becomes a wolf. The half-mile walk becomes 3 miles. The light snow becomes a blizzard that would make a Sherpa nervous. And by the time he's telling the story to his grandkids in 1995, he didn't just walk to school. He conquered it. That's not a lie, exactly. That's just what memory does when it loves you. It takes something hard and turns it into something heroic. Because somewhere deep down, that's what it actually felt like to a kid standing at the bottom of that hill in the dark. Compare that to today. A kid steps outside, already annoyed that the driveway is slightly damp, climbs into a heated car, and is dropped directly at the front door of the school, having never once felt real wind on his face. There is no story there. No mountain to climb, real or imagined. And maybe that's the quiet tragedy hiding underneath the joke. We built a world so comfortable that we accidentally removed the raw material our grandparents used to build their legends. I think about my grandfather a lot when I think about this. He wasn't lying when he said Everest. He was just doing what all of us do with the hardest parts of our childhood. He was turning cold and fear and exhaustion into something he could be proud of. Into something worth passing down. And somewhere in that snowy half-mile walk, between the frozen fingers and the frost on his eyelashes, he learned something that no heated car ride ever could have taught him. He learned that discomfort doesn't break you. It shapes you. The last time I saw him, he was in a hospital bed. And I asked him, half joking, "Grandpa, did you really climb a mountain to get to school?" And he laughed, that same knowing laugh, and said, "Every morning felt like one." Then he looked at me, serious for just a second, and said, "But I never once wanted to skip it." That's the part that still gets me. Not the exaggeration. The love underneath it. So here's what I want to know. What's the wildest school story your grandparents ever told you? The longest walk, the coldest morning, the bus that almost didn't make it up the hill? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And honestly, some of the best stories on this channel have come straight from you. If this brought back a memory of your own grandparent, someone who walked those roads, real or exaggerated, hit subscribe, because we're telling more of these stories every week. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there, your grandfather really did climb his own Everest. He just did it in a wool coat, with a lunch pail, and nobody ever gave him a medal for it. We're giving him one now.